Hey there, welcome to Cold Turkey Podcast. This week I'm with Katja. Katja is from Germany, and it was a long distance conversation. It was an appreciated conversation. It was surprising and sometimes different conversation with Katja. And the reason why I say that is that, and that was a conversation that I had with her, which is sometimes people come from I would say like a calm environment, and like there's nothing that like what makes you think that trouble will come eventually, but it did, and like we had a lot of talk about self-esteem and our appreciation of ourselves, and it was a fascinating talk that I had with Katja, and I'm just gonna leave you to share everything you find on Cold Turkey Podcast. Share it to your friends, share it to your social media. You can find now my YouTube channel being populated with the visualization transformation that I'm doing with Headliner, and it's not a sponsored app or ad. But I do appreciate that app, so you can see some snippet of it when I do publish the visual of audio snippets of the podcast on my Instagram posts. So without further ado, here's Katja. Enjoy. Hi, Katja. How you doing?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. As I do pretty much every episode, I'm going to be asking you, where are you located? Because I know, but I know that it's late on your side of the ocean.
Yes.
But where are you located, and how has the pandemic impacted you in the past few months?
We are in Germany. It's 2 a.m. right now. The pandemic, it has impacted me pretty greatly because I am a yoga teacher. I can't do much work at the moment. We are on a light lockdown at the moment, but I'm handling it. It's fine.
Has it impacted your sobriety or abstinence of using in any shape or form? Were you someone that did attend like meetings?
No, I did before the pandemic, but I was actually in a therapy kind of setting, and I was just finishing my therapy. I think in December 2019, so before everything hit, and I'm actually super happy that I was able to finish that, because I was thinking about other people who were in the midst of the therapy.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how it impacted those people, but I think that would have been a problem for me. But I finished and I felt pretty stable in my sobriety, and it did not impact that at all for me.
The other thing is that you're absolutely right. I've talked with someone that was in BC that I think she had something like 3 weeks of abstinence and sobriety before it started to hit. So while she had very little time to build relationships and kind of find people of trust, 3 weeks is a really short time.
Yes.
She was then confined to her house and had to rely on those, that really short contact list to reach out and find, the people, while being unable to actually go outside or attend a meeting or whatever. Yeah. So it was crazy. And the other thing is that the mental health side of that whole situation seems a bit discarded, or we're not attentive to it. We're not focused on that. And I think, we're going to pay for that later.
I think so too, yeah.
Yeah, it's a crazy time right now. Like I was used to attending meetings. I was used to, not that I was like a big hugging guy, or like I
Yeah.
wasn't, but just the vibe of a room full of people trying to help themselves was
Yes.
was really something that like it made me feel great. Um, you can't get that through. Well, I have a hard time finding that through a Zoom meeting.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree.
It's tough.
Yeah, it really is. It's this. I totally agree. I mean, I was like almost 2 years sober when the pandemic hit. So and my mental health has occasionally, I had my ups and downs, because like just what you said with the Zoom meetings, I see that with my yoga stuff. Some people teach online. I cannot do that because I feed off the energy of the room, you know? I
Yep.
need people, I need the contact. So I can totally see how that would impact somebody like in the beginning of their treatment or of the recovery road. So I think that would be very tough. And I honestly don't know how that would have impacted me. I'm very glad I did not have to be dealing with that.
Yeah, it's like I said, like it's a really tough time. I mean, like everyone is different, but like there are faces that I used to see in meetings, and I mean
Yes.
physical meetings that I don't see on Zoom meetings, and
Mhm.
it makes you wonder, like where are those people, and like what are they doing with their,
Definitely.
like their mental health. Like it's for me, like you just wanted to be past us, like it. I can't,
Yes.
I can't
Oh my
wait.
goodness.
I can't wait to tell my kids and grandkids, like there used to be a time.
Yes. It's so hard for so many people at the moment. You're definitely right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna be rewinding your life story movie,
Okay.
and I want you to bring me back to either the first memory of you taking something that has made you euphoric, or
Mhm.
sometimes I've spoken to people that like it's someone else's use that has impacted them greatly in their youth. So bring me back, Katja.
Okay. Um, I don't know. Alcohol has been a big part of my life always. I'm in Germany. It's a big cultural thing here. It's like, and I come from a small town, and everybody here drinks. I've always seen the adults, my parents, everybody. It seemed like alcohol was always a part of having a good time. You know,
Yeah.
that was the most normal thing to me. Um, I remember being very young when I was having alcohol for the first time, probably like 14 years old or something like that. And it was completely okay also to the adults to like have a sip of this, have a drink of that occasionally. It is just very, very okay in Germany to drink.
What kind
It's
of
a,
kid were you, Katja?
what is
What
that?
kind of kid were you? Were you like the rebel one, or the introvert, or the extrovert?
I
Uh,
was I was very extroverted, very outgoing as a kid. Yeah, always wanted to be seen, and you know what I mean. I was
yeah.
playing theater. I was in the choir. I was always like the life of the party a little bit,
Yep.
and a bit of a center of attention. I was always wanting to grab my parents' attention and stuff like that. So, yeah.
What was the family picture like? Any siblings, brother, sister?
Yeah, I had like a younger brother, 3 years younger than me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So were you taken, because I'm the oldest one in my,
Mhm.
and like you're sometimes taken as kind of the example or the pioneer or whatever, like the school, and was this something that you had in your life as well?
Not that much. No,
Okay.
no.
And in terms of authority, like I always have that conversation with my guests. Like there's two step to authority. First, there's like how your parent were, um, what was their authority like, and then your relation with the first external authority is school, right? You know, like there's like that, depending on how it was strict at home, your relation with school is that differs from one side to another. So what was the household like in terms of authority?
You mean the schools or
at home? Was it a strict environment?
We were very, very open.
Okay.
We had little limits in our home.
Okay.
My parents were very young when they had us.
Yep.
They were, they were kind of almost still dealing with themselves and still very much about having a good time.
Yep.
Do you know what I'm trying to say? And
absolutely.
My parents tried to almost be a bit friends to us. You know, I think I wanted more rules and more routine, more structure sometimes.
Yeah, you're not the first one to tell me.
Now, you know, and I had a lots of therapy regarding that.
Yeah, it's not
reparenting myself.
It's not the first time that I hear that. You know, like that. You know, like when there's not enough rules, you feel like, you know, like you should have been given more. You know, like you wanted like more of a frame of how to live and how to behave, you know? And
I remember my mom always used to be so proud because we were like friends almost, you know, and she was always very proud that I consider her my friend. I have daughters myself now. I don't want to be their friend, you know. I don't want to be their friend. I want to be their mom, and they have other friends. And I don't know. I look back now and I see that that's a problem. You're not your kid's friend.
No, and as a parent myself, you know, like there was something that I had to learn the tough way, which is I had my oldest son at 22.
Oh yeah,
and you know, like, well, obviously, I can relate to what your parent have gone through, which is like trying to be more than friendly, almost. So, like you said, you know, like almost like friend. And then at some point it bites you back because you know, like you can't put any authority into, you know, like how you raise your child, and so you try to become a friendly parent, which is kind of an absurd term, but it's tough. And then at some point, you know, like when they get to their teens, they just turn around and like, what the hell, Dad? You know, like you've never been. You know, like you've never been strict, you know, like why the hell, you know, like what are those limits, you know, like, and it's, I mean, like it is a tough, engagement, but at the same time, like if you don't realize that soon enough, it will bite you back, you know, like, so what was your relation with school then? You know, because I'm guessing that, you know, like when there's, you know, like a lot of freedom at home, when you get to school, it must be some kind of a little shock, right?
It was not so bad. I was naturally trying to please my teachers. It was just my, you know, and I was wanting to be good, having good grades. I was a bit of a perfectionist. I always compared myself to others. I wanted those A's and B's, so that was important for me. And I had a pretty friendly relationship to most of my teachers.
Nice.
Yeah, that was pretty okay. I mean, I think as long as I was a child still, everything was going pretty straight for me. Everything was fine. I started having problems as a teenager.
And
in school, in life, partying, stuff like that, you know. That was when it really all crumbled down a little bit on me. As a kid, not so much yet.
Can you elaborate on that, Katja? You know, like what do you think happened? You know, like was there something, an event, or more of a kind of questioning yourself? What was it?
I switched schools in like when I was 14 or 15 years old. And that was probably the big turning point for me because everything was easy up until that point.
Okay.
I was doing really good in school. I was in all of those extracurricular things. I was doing theater, choir, everything you can think about, I did. And then I switched schools. Actually, I switched to a different school because I was considered more talented than some others. And in Germany, we have a different school system. We get separated at a certain age. And so I switched to a school that like taught more languages, a bit harder math, stuff like that. And that's when it all started. I suddenly was in a school where most of my friends' parents were like academics. They were like lawyers, doctors. I come from a workers family. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And all of a sudden, I noticed. All of a sudden, I wasn't special anymore, so to speak. All of a sudden, I was like. Yeah, I didn't stick out. Everybody there had like good grades. The kids in my school were talented in sports. Like in my old school, I was always like in the athletics team and stuff like that. So suddenly I switched to another school, and I all of a sudden wasn't special anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And my confidence really suffered through that.
And
then at that time, when it was very, very crucial, my parents did not support me. I'm not blaming my parents; they didn't know any better. But I could not get a lots of help from them. They did not take it seriously.
okay, because you did express it, right?
I did express it all the time. I was asking if maybe I could have. I was having a hard time in math. I was asking for tutor sessions and stuff like that, and they were always saying, "Oh, you just go back to the other school. Maybe you." And they said to me, "Maybe you're just not as smart as we thought."
Wow.
They did not mean
No, no,
harm,
no.
but it was to me. It impacted me so much. It affected my whole entire life up until just recently. It is insane, and yeah.
And
Great what you can do.
as you mentioned that you were trying to be the center of attention and pleasing the people around you, my
Yeah.
guess is that like as like it's like a downward spiral, right? Like your grades get less
Totally.
good, and so you're less and less. Like if you're not like doing good in athletics or just average, like you become kind of the average character in a movie. Like you're not the superstar. It must be tough and heavy to carry.
Very. Yeah. All of a sudden, I was like mediocre in sports. I wasn't like the kid anymore that was able to do everything. You know what I mean? And I needed other outlets all of a sudden. I needed to stick out in other ways.
And so I'm guessing that alcohol became one great crutch to just vent off.
Yes, because my self-esteem suffered so much during that time, of course,
Yeah.
And I was pretty, I had very, very low self-esteem. I went from that kid that was on stage and everything, who was like I was on horseback riding competitions, everything that you can think about, I did. And then all of a sudden, I stopped doing everything. I didn't want to compete anymore because I was so scared of failure. I did not want to do any of that anymore because I was scared I come out in the middle. And, that was, yeah. And then I stopped it all. I stopped all my hobbies, horseback riding, all of that. And I went to the party scene. That's where I then found my friends, my clique, my new
calling.
people.
Your new calling.
My new calling was drinking and being loud and a party girl.
Exactly. And then, like as you wanted to raise awareness from the teachers by having good grades. I mean, by drinking, like a bit or a lot more than others and screaming louder and, like dancing longer, you're getting that feeling back.
Yes, of course. I was trying to be the best at partying.
Yeah, exactly. You need the A or a B at party.
I had to feel like I felt like I was nothing anymore, and I felt like that. I literally almost felt like that's the only way people like me. I started to focus completely on the way that I look, because I thought I literally for a while thought as a teenager, I have no talents, I'm not extra smart, I have nothing going for me. But if I try to look as cute as possible, if I look beautiful, then the guys give me attention, and the girls too, of course,
Yeah.
And to me, that was my main focus. How do I look? How do I act? How going to the club, partying, dancing, drinking, trying all types of other things. And to me, it was always important, I don't turn anything down because I'm cool.
Yeah. And was it only alcohol or drugs got involved in that spiral as well?
Mostly I drank,
Yep.
but I tried everything that people offered me. Occasionally, we did weed sometimes, a little bit of speed occasionally, stuff like that.
Yeah. But it was more of a recreational thing. It didn't become an addiction as much as alcohol was.
No, that did not. I was addicted to feeling good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would have just taken everything that gives me a high.
Yeah.
No, the weed was not recreational. It was for me to get high, to reach a point where I don't have to be sober and I don't have to feel sobriety and don't have to, where I can cover up.
Yeah, because sobriety meant feeling like shit, actually.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I took I always tried to get a hand on prescription pills back at that time. Stuff like that. Just.
What I mean, my guess is that it was fun for a while, right? Like finding that, like kind of a different way to, how can I say it? Like finding a new way to almost appreciate life or appreciate yourself must have been good for maybe a little while, but at least for a short while was great.
Yeah, definitely. It was. I had great moments, of course, but I remember the time. And honestly, I would not. Since it is, I consider it a big part of who I am now. So I wouldn't take anything back. I became who I am now because of all of my story. But looking back, yes, I did have a great time. I did enjoy it for a while. But I do remember often waking up, and then when the alcohol left my system or when I became sober, I often remember feeling empty inside and lonely. But then, of course, going out again, that was my life for a while.
And already, did you already identified your substance use as the cause of that, or you just felt like crap? Not really.
Not at all think that my substance abuse had anything to do with it.
Yeah.
Up until 2018.
Yeah.
I am 43 now. That we're talking about when I was 15 years old. In 2018, when my therapist told me that I have an alcohol problem and I'm an alcoholic, I told them, no, I don't. That's not my problem. I didn't see it at all.
Yeah.
To me, it was normal.
So it wasn't, yeah. So even though you wake up and you feel not only hungover, but your inside feels like shit, you can't find it and pinpoint to that, like the hangover and the fact that you probably had a little bit too much the day before.
No, not at all.
And so, how did it impact both school and your relation with your family?
My family was not concerned at all. Okay. They thought it was pretty normal. I have to say, my mother is an alcoholic herself.
Okay.
My father probably was too. Looking back, he probably was just never diagnosed, Um,
Yeah.
but to them, it was not at all a problem. My mom, till this point, is a little bit sad that I don't drink with her anymore. It is crazy. It is really crazy. I mean, I love that woman.
Yeah.
I love her because I can, through therapy, I can look at her now and I see what I see her, and I have like a passion for her and compassion for her.
Empathy.
I know it's not her fault.
It's empathy, Katja.
Empathy, yeah.
It is
yeah.
empathy. Like I realize that empathy is the secret to pretty much all healing. Like
Yes.
it's the fact to it's the fact that you put in like a pinch of empathy to every relation, most of the relation that we have, and it
Yes.
changes everything. It's sometimes it's even more than compassion. It's even more than putting yourself in their shoes.
True.
It's the empathy, like, because sometimes I don't understand it. Like there are stuff that you can't understand, but
True.
by being empathic to like to the situation, you're like, well, okay, like that's it. Like it's letting go and
Yes.
and finding empathy to kind of all kinds of fucked up behaviors.
Yeah, and that's so true. That's like that's what true healing is. You have. I loved how you said that. Let go. You have to let go of that. You have to let go of that resentment. I felt resentment for so long, and that you need to let that go. Otherwise, you will never find peace.
Yeah. Yeah, my mom, I think even 10, like she passed this year, but like even 10 years in my sobriety, my mother she stopped asking, but I remember kind of one of the last times she asked, she was like, so you're never ever going to drink, like, and she paid for my therapy, like my parents paid for my therapy when I was 30. And I come out of therapy and I don't know what they taught, but like, well, even myself, I had mostly a big pot smoking problem.
Okay.
Never underestimating that my alcohol intake was too much, So I get in therapy and the guy's like, okay, let me ask you one question. And I'm going to let it, because I told him, like, I'm here because I have a weed problem, like a pot problem. And he's like, okay, so I'm going to ask you one question about alcohol and I want you to answer tomorrow. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, how fast do you drink the first beer when you get back from work? And he leaves me at that. And so I spend the night thinking that I can't remember that first beer ever because I drink it too fast. Yeah. And so the next day he's like, so what did you think? I'm like, well, I have no memory of the first one ever. That first beer is just like, I swallow it and, like I would start counting by the second or third, and he's like, well, you probably, I'm assuming that you have an alcohol problem as well. So from my parents' standpoint, like I go in therapy for a pot marijuana problem and I come back 21 days later and they don't know that, like, I come back and I'm like, well, I'm pretty much addicted to anything that gets me high, and my mom was like, so you're not going to take a drink? I'm like, no, I'm not, and she's like, never, ever? I'm like, no. But to be quite honest and transparent, it was mostly on my mom's side of the family tree that, like we saw a lot of alcoholics, drug addicts, and and a lot of addiction came from my mom's side of my DNA, so so sure enough, like she couldn't figure out, like, and she probably would have been a good alcoholic, but her physical health didn't allow her to probably go at the extremes that she would have liked to. So,
yes, sure,
but my grandfather mostly died an alcoholic on my mom's side. So yeah, I mean, like I totally understand that your mom would say, you're never going to have a drink with me.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm like, no, Mom. I know. I just try to tell her how sobriety feels and how, oh my goodness, but it's like, you have to want it yourself. It has to, you
Absolutely.
have to come to that point where it like, I don't know.
And maybe the solution sometimes is to say, you know what, Mom, maybe one day.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
Let's make her happy.
Exactly. You know what, Mom, maybe one day, but not today.
She has pretty much accepted it by now, but it makes her a little bit sad. She sometimes says, it was fun when we used to drink. I'm like, yep.
Yeah, it was.
If you think so, I mean, yeah, of course it was at the moment, but oh my God, I would not trade in the way that I feel now for anything.
Yeah.
Never, never, never.
I wouldn't either. So we talked about the impact on family, which seems to have been minimal. What was the impact on school then?
Well, I started, I don't know, my grades, I was mediocre, I started to become a very mediocre student, and I did not reach the goals that I had set for myself. I wanted to go to college, university in Germany. But I did not do that. Instead, I learned a trade. I went to school. And internship to become a paralegal. So not a terrible job, but it was not what I wanted. I took it because that's what I was getting with the grades I had. So it impacted my school life. It impacted everything because I basically did not have the stamina anymore to study. I went to school. Sometimes I skipped school because I was up too long the night before and I just didn't go to school. Sometimes I just drove with my bus to school and I just got off and went to the city with a friend and drank something there. So considering the fact that I was doing all that, basically did not do homework. I often did not take notes in school. Considering that, I did okay in school. I mean, but looking back, it's like, it's sad,
Yeah. And so
it was sad. It's not sad anymore because I recovered from all that. I'm doing a job that I love now, but it took a long, long, long time.
So you said that you already woke up kind of, like being almost in pain spiritually and, like mentally.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you counter that feeling by using more, or you would just like try to find, because, like the low self-esteem is probably one of the, like it eats you alive, right? Like it's like it seems like you're slowly almost dying.
Yeah.
How do you find, like a way to behave, like act normal during the day?
I barely. I mean, I was just putting on an act, kind of.
Yeah.
I was a good actress. I pretended to be. I pretended to be good, and I did a lots of rebellious things. Like I always had to wear the craziest clothes. I had to color my hair all types of different colors. I needed to stick out with my looks, kinda, and I tried to show that way. I tried to stick out that way, and I tried to create an aura around myself that like a little bit dark and stuff like that. So yeah. And I had friends like that. I was like friends with a lots of punks and people who used and stuff like that. So for a while, it felt like I felt almost okay in that cloud.
Would you say that it was almost dangerous as well? Like, because, like hanging out in kind of the underground of things, like makes it, like it makes you more vulnerable, right? Like
I am so, I don't know. I am a very fortunate person that everything played out the way that it did. I have to honestly say that. I'm so lucky that nothing ever happened to me, because I remember being outside at night all by myself with maybe another girl, sometimes by myself in a big city, because I didn't drive home with my friends or something like that, because I just didn't want the party to end yet. I am lucky that I'm like not only alive but healthy.
Yeah, and at the same time, like I said, like you make yourself vulnerable to all kinds of predators. Like I'm not just saying, like, and I mean scam for money, and like all kinds of situation where you're at risk.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, especially as a young girl, always being drunk. And that was a problem in my life too. The boys and the men.
Can you elaborate? Would you mind elaborating on that? Like, I mean, do you mean by finding like exclusively dysfunctional?
No, I mean, honestly, I was for a while, or for a long time, that's how I received love.
Yeah.
Through physical love, and I was what you would say now to or what they said back then was like, oh, she's a bit slutty.
Yeah, I understand.
I was like one of those slutty girls, but looking back at it, I like look at, and that's the word again, empathy. I look at girls now and I'm like, who do that? And I'm like, they are not slutty. They're looking for something. They're looking for love. They're looking for something. They have such a void inside.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, and I used to be so embarrassed of myself. I'm married now. And I remember when I met my husband, I could not tell him about my history, and he knows now, of course. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking so openly about it. He knows now. I opened up to him finally. And that felt so good that he still loved me. But I was, everybody who looked nice and who looked good, in my opinion, and wanted a piece of me, who could have me at that time,
Yeah. And but at the same time, like by telling the story as you did, as you're doing, you can actually identify those moment where like you just said it a few minutes ago, like I had to be center of attention. I felt the need to be for people to notice me. So no wonder when puberty and like all these hormonal changes that happens in a boy and a girl's body, like that transfers to sexuality. Like so there's so there's no like no one should be in shock to hear that, like whatever the attention you got, whether it was psychological when you were younger and eventually physical and sexual. I mean, well, it's no surprise, like there's definitely something, as you said, like you came to your teens saying, well, if I'm being told and I feel that I'm mediocre and at, like less than average on the psychological side of things, well, fuck them. I'm going to be much better on the sexual and the physical side of things, like, and find a way that if in my eyes, I feel like shit, in someone else's eye, I'm going to be seeing something much better.
Yeah, definitely. And I see it like that now. And I don't feel embarrassed about it anymore. I can talk about it because I see why. I see me now, and I see the feelings and the emotions behind it. I see the girl, that. And it's just like, and I have compassion for that person that I was back then, for the young girl who needed love and who needed something else. And I remember all my life, I was trying to have my parents' love and attention, and especially my father's. I always tried to make my mom and my dad proud, and I never got that, and it was just Yeah. And then I did it in other ways. And
Yeah, and it's funny that you talk about this because like you come to a point in your life that you realize that sometimes it's only because they didn't say it, or like they didn't make it feel as you would have liked it to feel. Like
yes.
it's not
Yeah.
that they weren't proud of you. It's not that they weren't loving
True.
you as much as they could. Is that you wanted it one way and you got it a different way, and you couldn't understand it. Like it was just like, what is that? Like and maybe like they maybe it was out of I wouldn't say empathy, but maybe like that guidance that the like telling you that maybe you're not that smart, which is a rude way of saying stop putting so much pressure on yourself, like and which is
Oh my
which
God, yeah. And that's exactly what they wanted,
yeah,
because it was never important for my parents. That's what they tell me now, because sometimes I try to talk to them about it.
yeah,
I felt like this, and they're like, oh my God, we just wanted you to know we love you either way, no matter your grades, no matter, it was just the. And I know that my parents love me or loved me, but it was like what you said. The way I needed it shown in a different way, or I needed to feel it in a different way, or something
yeah.
like
And it like looking back, I feel like it was almost an act of love telling you that, even though, like I
Yes,
said, it was like in a weird and rude way, but it was kind of an act of love telling you, well, Katja, stop putting yourself so much pressure. Like it's,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like it's way too much, and like you're gonna crack. And even though like you ended up cracking, like and like I realize now that like sometimes it's just like it looks like FM radio, like you're listening to 96.9 and someone is, like is shouting on 102, and you're like, what the fuck? All I hear is noise, and like I don't understand it. But like they're actually telling you what you want to hear, but they're not telling you on the same channel that you're captive, and you're attentive to listening to it. And that kind of weird transmission of information makes us, especially during these years, like those are the worst years. I was talking to someone I think it was on Monday. I was recording an episode, and we were talking about the fact that when you're 16, you finish, you're about to go to college, 16 or 17, you're about to go to college, and it's probably the worst time in your life for someone to ask you what you're going to do with your life.
Yes.
Like, because it's probably the only time in your life where the last thing you know is what you're going to do with your life.
That's true, yeah.
And school asks you that question, and you're like, what the hell? Like, I don't even know why I'm here.
Yes, true.
And I mean, on this planet, like, so, and you're asking me what I want to do as a career. I mean,
Yes.
please give me a break here. Like, I don't know, like, so, and it's this kind of the same thing with our parents, like they come a time where, me, myself as a parent, like I even though you kind of understand because you've gone through it, you look at your child and you're like, well, don't you understand? Like there's some stuff that are important, and there's stuff that isn't. But
Yeah.
like you kind of don't know how to communicate it between like between being rude or being tough, and being
Yes.
like having some empathy for how they're feeling. And it's not only a tough job for one as the parent, but it's a tough job as the kid. Like those are rough times.
Yes,
And
yes.
if you add the variable of substance use, well,
Yeah.
everyone's fucked.
Yeah, yeah.
Like everyone is, like no one's gonna win that one. Like it's just a lost race. Like there's nothing that's gonna be. For me, like in retrospect, like especially in my during that time, I remember taking art. I took art in college, and it was probably a bad idea. Well, it definitely was a bad idea, but I loved art. I loved I'm pretty sure I'm a creative individual. Never expecting, and my parents are not, like my parents are way more pragmatic than that. And so,
yes.
so they couldn't guide me and tell me it was a bad idea or not. Like I saw that my father wasn't too proud of it, but he was like, well, if it's what you want to do, let's go. And I ended up in college realizing that I wasn't about to be taught how to do art, but I would be competing for people that knew already how to do art.
Yeah.
And so I was surrounded with people that were super performant, super talented, and I wasn't. I was just like I just love creativity. So I had great idea, but I couldn't express them. I didn't know how to draw. I didn't know how to, like I was sitting next to a tattoo artist. Like what the hell? Like for me it was just like, holy cow! Like that guy could just draw me like an angel like this. Like I was like, what the fuck? I can't. And like my college ended while I was trying to draw a horse. And I remember trying to, like concentrate and focus and it looked like shit, like it was really, really bad. And the guy was named Sebastien. I turned around and I looked at Sebastien. I think he was drawing a horse as well, or a dog. And I looked at his animal and I was like, okay, I'm I have to quit. But at the same time, it was just a bad time. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I remember meeting with someone that was like a school counselor at the college, and we spoke for about 40 minutes, and he asked me, so what are you going to do in life? And I'm like, well, I'm here to ask you those questions. I don't expect to have the answers in me because I wouldn't be meeting with you. So it's just bad time.
You don't know at that time. It's true.
Yeah. And so I guess you're so in your 20s, it was party all the time.
That was more like in my I think in my 20s it was the same, but it started when I was like 15 years old, all the way up till I was like in my 20s. Yes, at some point at that time, like in my 20s, I met my husband, and things did get a little bit better then. But for a while, my husband did not realize the big issues I have. He knows now. We're married for over 20 years. But when he first met me, he just fell in love with this party girl, and he liked me that way back then. When he first met me, he said I had a very, very lively personality when he met me drinking.
Yeah. And so I guess you tried to control yourself?
Yeah. And when I was through adulthood, in early adult time, it kind of like I mastered that somewhat. I was being able to control my drinking very well. I drank at the weekends, I drank often in the evenings, but throughout the day I was pretty fine. I was doing a lots of stuff. I was working in a law office for a while. Then I moved to the States, did a lots of different things there. It seemed like things were coming together for me, but mentally, never really, that was never really. And alcohol always played a big role in my life still. Even then, I lived for the weekends and going out drunk. And I was always, I liked how you said the first beer you don't remember. It was the same. I was drinking a lot of wine. And I always was so shocked because I was on my third glass of wine while everybody else was still sipping on their first. class, you know what I mean? So I was always the drunkest and stuff like that. But for a while in adult time or in adulthood, it wasn't so obvious anymore that I had a problem, you know?
Yeah.
It was more on the weekends. I was holding it together. I was holding a shop. I was doing my stuff. So I was very functioning alcoholic.
Yeah, but did you feel it inside that, like you were almost twitching to get that next drink?
Yeah, it was very important for me to always have that planned for the weekend, or like even during the week, I bought like a bottle of wine to go with dinner, stuff like that, you know. Or I mean, it never stopped being not important for me. I wasn't physically addicted, but psychologically, you know what I mean? It was breakfast. When I knew I met girls for breakfast, I was disappointed when they didn't have champagne or something like that, you know? So to have a drink was always important for me. It was always a part of everything except for work. I was able to kind of like separate that. But all my leisure time, my fun times was always involving alcohol. I did not know how to have a good time without it. So
when would you say that it started to become a bigger problem in your life?
A big problem, it became, I would say, you know, it went on for a while. Then I had my daughters, which throughout pregnancy I didn't drink at all. Also not during the breastfeeding time, but we moved around a lot. My husband is U.S. Military,
Yep.
and we moved between Germany and the States a lot. And our last move back to Germany was in 2016, and that was my point where everything fell apart. Like really, I was like struggling so hard to find my place again. Now I have children. I had to also kind of like take care of, to find their way again, to find their group, to be okay in a new school, in a new setting. You know, everything had changed. So that was my big breaking point. And that was the time when I started neglecting things around the house. That's when I was in Germany and I didn't try to find a new job. I was just starting to feel more depressed. And that's when I started to, every evening I was waiting for, I was drinking my wine. I was up until like 2, 3 at night time and just drinking. That was the time when I did my household chores and everything because I couldn't do them without drinking anymore. So that's when it became really bad. 2016, the big move over the ocean had kind of like triggered that a little bit, you know, where it all came crumbling down on me.
And how did you react to it? Like what did you do about it? Like how, like were you looking for help? Like, did you know anyone that, like had either quit drinking or wasn't using and you could rely on?
No, I was always going to therapy, and I tried to be treated for depression and whatever types of mental illnesses. I was always trying to figure out. I was desperately trying to figure out what was wrong with me, you know. And so I did go to therapy sessions, but nothing changed much until like. And I didn't have guidance. I didn't know anybody who was going through the same thing. I remember it was in March 2018 when I woke up one morning. I was hungover. I was so hungover because, of course, I drank the night before and I felt like shit. And that same night, I had planned like a party for my daughter. And I was like thinking, I can't do that party. Oh my God, I can't because I had people invited. And I remember that that day I was like, oh God, I need help. Either I'm dying today or I'm dying today if I don't get help because I can't live like that anymore. So I drove myself to a clinic. Probably wasn't supposed to be driving, but I drove myself to a clinic and admitted myself and thinking I was admitting myself for depressions. And there I found out that I had a major alcohol problem. I was completely oblivious to that. And I was fighting it too, because I didn't want to stop drinking, of course.
And so they were the ones making you realize that you had an issue.
Yes. I did not know it until then. It was crazy. I still, to this point, even though I was hungover most of the time, I drove my kids to school a lot of the times, probably not being allowed to drive. I remember I called my kids in sick twice because I was too hungover to get them ready for school. Yeah. And I still did not know I had an alcohol problem. I thought it was depressions. And if somebody would just help me with that, I wouldn't drink.
How did you like when they told you that, how did you feel about it?
I was angry. I was really angry, and I wanted to talk to a different therapist, and I was trying to make them see that that's not what my problem is. I was fighting for my alcohol.
Yeah.
It was only there came the point where they told me, okay, then they can't keep me here. Then I need to go home and continue as I am doing, or I can stay, and I have to follow their treatment plan, and which includes sobriety. And at that point, I was like, "Fuck, I'm not. I don't have an. I was like still thinking I don't have an alcohol issue, but I'm doing it because I can't go back to how things were before. So I'm like, I just do it, and." So in the beginning, when I started the treatment, I started an outpatient, a bit over a year-long treatment. And I was always thinking, in the beginning, I was thinking, okay, I will drink again once this year is over. I had in my mind, I was like, okay, I'm going to drink again when this year is over, but I'm going to do this year so I can get treated. Totally crazy, and that was my thought. But during that year of treatment, I finally woke up and saw it myself. Finally.
Did on top of being angry, I guess you were looking for kind of like what was the toolbox you were given?
I had intensive therapy, group therapy, and individual therapy. That's what they did for me, and lots of. They did a lot of working on trauma, and stuff like that, and yeah.
Did it? Did it help? Because we haven't talked. We haven't talked much about any of the Alcoholics Anonymous, for example. Were you referred to these places?
Yes, I was.
And did you try it? Did you like it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you mean the Alcoholics Anonymous now?
Yeah, the meetings. Yeah.
I have not tried that, but a friend of mine, I met. The funny thing is now that I have been through recovery, or that I am in recovery, I'm meeting so many people with the same problems, and I have a very good friend now who's trying to get me to come to those meetings with her. Since my therapy is done and over with, she thinks I should continue to do something for myself there in that department. Lots of people actually tell me that. Yeah.
There's definitely, there's definitely just. I mean, I'm I came out of therapy with that recommendation, that biggest recommendation of going there, like, so,
Okay.
so for me, like it was more of realizing that I wasn't alone, like that's probably the biggest realization, like it's holy shit, like that, like
Yeah.
I'm not the only one that looks, like that feels like crap. And that's,
Yeah.
like, that was my biggest realization, like
I think I got that in my therapy setting, because it is like they did have the group therapy. I think I got that part taken care of back there. But once I was done with that type of therapy, because we met weekly with
yep.
the same group, kind of like AA. And we met every week. And then I also had individual therapy sessions with that same therapist. But I was released in December 2019. And then it was also recommended that maybe I continue something by myself. I have never done that, but also the pandemic hit, So I have never
changed
done that
everything.
yet, but I'm considering it in the future. Right now, I don't feel my sobriety in any way jeopardized or anything, but I know how. I know other people who have been very sure about themselves and have relapsed. So I think it is good eventually for me to go to something like that, to keep myself in check, to keep working on myself. I
And
think
it's so insidious. That's the biggest thing, like it's
yes.
and like I said, like I found more of like it's the feeling of belonging that
Yes.
has changed a lot. And I'm not promoting any type, like you talked about, like having other types of therapy, which is like great example of like just being together with others makes it, like makes our life much better. Only because like it's the sense of belonging. Like that's pretty much the best thing, is to realizing that, oh wow, okay, so like I'm not alone, I'm not the only one. And like it changes it. Well, it seems to be changing a lot for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like it changed a lot of things, so
Yeah. For me, what was my huge game changer also is throughout my therapy, I started to go to yoga teacher training, and I became a yoga teacher. And I'm I mean, at the moment with the pandemic, things are rough, but that's a lot where I get a lot of my belonging from right now. My yoga group, my other yoginis and my yogis. That's where I get a lot of that feeling from, that belonging, that purpose in life right now.
yeah.
That's a big part for me. That's like one of my most important tools now in sobriety. My yoga. That is like,
Yeah, that's I mean, again, like it's very very much the sense of community, like that's what changes, like it changes everything.
Totally. And another fellow yoga teacher is also recovering alcoholic. She actually does go to A meetings. She actually does a bit of yoga for that group. It's I'm glad I have that group now, because I don't know how I would be holding up without my yoga family. Because here in my little small town, everybody is normal.
Yeah.
Nobody is like me.
and yeah,
I love everybody, and I have a great group of people here, but I cannot just talk to them and they just understand me. That's that type of connection I have with other people who are going through the same thing, or even with my yoga people, that where I can just be like this and that, and I don't have to explain much. They just understand.
yeah, and it changes everything, like it does. It changes everything, like that's the beauty of it.
Yes.
And so how do you keep your sobriety healthy? Like you talked about, like the like kind of finding a fraternity through your yoga classes. like, do you do a lot of journaling? Do you write a lot? Do you, like meditation? Is there like a recipe for Katja sobriety?
Yes, I take a lots of care of myself. I always make sure that I fill my cup now, because that's how I can be a good mother. And I'm so happy and grateful for my daughters that they have a mother now.
Yep.
And yeah, but I make sure I fill my cup. I do a lot of journaling, my yoga, nature. I'm a lot outside. I go outside a lot, hiking. I need my alone time. And I sometimes tell my husband, I need alone time now. And then I take that.
Yep.
And then I can come back and be there for everybody. And I love being there for everybody. It is not overwhelming anymore. But I make sure first that I'm okay.
Yeah.
And I have learned that in therapy we focused a lot on self-care and self-love, find out what feels good. And it's of course different for everybody. Some people like to do photography, some people are runners. For me it was yoga, writing, reading. I love to read a lot, those types of things, and yeah. And I always just have to make, so far I can now tell when I'm like somewhat going down a bit, and I know what to do now. I'm not trying to say I will never have problems again, but at the moment I feel stable, but I know I have to be careful. We were told in therapy to be it's a work that you have to do a lifetime. You can't slip.
Absolutely. And it's yeah. And being careful is pretty much the secret of it all, like it's,
Yes.
yeah. Well, like, is there anything, like, because, like, I know I found you on social media.
Yes.
I always ask, like our guests, like, where can, like, do you promote that sobriety? Do you talk about it? Is there places and ways that people can find you on social media so that they can be inspired?
Yes, I do talk a lot about mental health and sobriety on Instagram, and it is an open account. It is public.
And so, where can people find you?
It's on Instagram. It's Sober Yoga Kate.
Okay. So for every listeners, I say that every week, but like, if Katja is going to provide me with all of the links, like, so that we can find her, and it's going to be found in the description below the episode. So you just scroll down with your mouse and you're going to find every link in there. Katja, it was a pleasure having you on this. I enjoyed every minute of it. Like, it's, for me, it's always, like, now I have Germany as a, like, as a new region that I've had guests for. So, like, I'm super happy that you accepted to join in, and it was a pleasure having you.
Thank you for having me. It is important for me too to talk about it. We need to talk about it. We need to add the stigma a little bit too, and give ourselves a voice, make ourselves heard, So
yeah.
I'm very thankful and grateful for what you do also. It's
Thanks.
Great work.
It's appreciated. And, like, I can't be thankful enough, like, for people joining in, like, I reach out as almost a stranger and, like, hey, hi, like, would you like to be part of that? And people just say yes, like, they just get in, and I'm super happy about this, like, so thanks a lot. It was really appreciated.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good night. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.